Red Curtain Addict. Thank you so much for joining me tonight for a behind-the-curtain look at some of the most exciting and buzzworthy concerts, digital events, and art stories that are happening around the world. This evening, our special guest is Mason Bates. Mason is a composer of the Grammy Award-winning opera, The Revolution of Steve Jobs. He is also the first composer in residence appointed by the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts and was named the most performed composer of his generation in a recent survey by Musical America in 2018. So not only does Mason have some pretty mean composer skills, but he's actually a DJ who specializes in classical, mixing classical music and EDM. I've invited him on tonight to talk about his latest creation, Mercury Soul Cathedral, which is a digital mini-series that features a meditative, classical, and electronic music fusion. Before I welcome him on, I actually want to give you a peek at one of these episodes. Trust me, you're going to like what you see. Check it out. Wow, it's so beautiful. I love seeing her play, and Mason's back there mixing in the background. Mason, welcome on. Great to see you.
Yeah, it's really great to do this. Thank you for sharing that. That was such a incredible creative lift to be able to put that together this summer when everything has been dark.
Oh my gosh, I definitely can't wait to hear about this and everything that's involved. I want to know, before we start thinking and talking through how this came about and what inspired it, I have to ask you, I think that it's so cool you have passions for classical and EDM music, which I love as well. What came first? Was it your love for classical or EDM, or a little bit of both?
Well, I definitely didn't start DJing because I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, a great place to be in many ways, but not exactly a thriving electronic scene. So I went to Juilliard, and that was when I encountered DJing, electronic dance music, hip hop, techno, and Lower East Side primarily at that time. And I started integrating them when I was in college. The real revelation for me was when I moved to San Francisco. I found in the wake of the .com bust that there were so many spaces where DJs were operating. You could spin all kinds of different music if you were in an art gallery or a lounge, rather than only like sort of four on the floor. So that was when I started integrating them. And now it's been, almost 20 years of having both of them in my life. They both feel equal parts of me.
So I've actually been able to see Mason perform with Mercury Soul. It's definitely such an amazing experience. So when the world opens back up, it's something you should check out. Mason, tell us a little bit more about Mercury Soul for those that haven't heard about it just yet.
Mercury Soul is a dance party that happens in clubs like Public Works or Great Northern or DNA Lounge or Halcyon, that's then visited by like a SWAT team of classical musicians. So you'll go from having someone like Rob Garza playing, DJing some awesome dance floor music that will then become like Mozart or Debussy. So we try to kind of bridge those worlds in a way that's natural, that is very fluid, and that's fun. When you hear something by Stravinsky that then morphs back into a DJ set, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's so much fun, and it's a cool environment too, right? You get to get out of the the classical kind of theaters, and you're more in dance clubs and people are casually dressed and you have a cocktail in your hand and you're instead of sitting, you're standing and you get to kind of dance to the music. And it's just such a fun experience. I loved it. I would definitely strongly recommend it to all you guys.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So let's talk about this series. This is really exciting. Been following it coming out episode by episode. I'm curious what really kind of inspired you to start this, and the music that is created in there. Are there some of your pieces that you've composed? And also a little bit more about the musicians that are featured.
Yeah, so Mercury Soul is very much about animating classical music in clubs. And so we wanted to create that experience digitally. We thought that the time needed something meditative and chill and beautiful. There's a lot of stressful news and attacks from the heavens on us right now, acts of God, which never seem to be good. So we basically went into St. Joseph's Cathedral, this beautiful rebuilt cathedral in Soma, designed by the renowned Ken Falk. And we decided to have just solos or quartets, small things, that be filmed for 4 or 5 minutes each. And part of the journey is having the camera kind of glide from one part of the cathedral to the next. So you can look at the art, the architecture is featured just as much as the musicians themselves. And the idea is to have something you can put on your big screen in like 4K resolution for 15 minutes before maybe you screen Netflix or whatever you're watching. It absolutely works great as kind of ambient television. You know, it's a little bit like, you know, when you have that Christmas fire log, you can just kind of put it on. Well, this is a lot deeper than that, but it fulfills that same kind of function of being kind of ambient and beautiful, and just kind of kicking off a kind of thoughtful 15-minute, almost like mindfulness journey.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. It's just, it's very meditative. It's just I found myself watching it and almost escaping a little bit and just kind of being able to take a deep breath, honestly. And
yeah,
it was a nice escape. That's the thing, you know, right now, what's so unique is that we don't have that escape of music. We don't get to go to that theater, and even like the movie theaters, you know, to go see something to take us away from all of it. And this was that for me digitally. And I think that was really, really well done. I want to know a little bit more about the musicians that are featured. There's a lot of different variety of music that I saw, from the flute to the piano to the violin. How did you figure out kind of what musicians to involve, and are they all local to San Francisco?
Yeah, it's interesting having extraordinary constraints placed on you. Obviously, we couldn't very easily fly anybody in for this, but we really didn't need to, because we have such an amazing community of musicians that perform on Mercury Soul shows. Shana Evanuk, who is the violinist playing in the opening that you just kicked off with, is a phenomenal talent, part of Jazz Mafia and our own Cosa Nostra Strings. In addition, we have people such as Arun Saigal and Vineet Gopal, who are playing some Indian classical music. We have the Eclectic Quartet playing Thais Meditation by Massenet. We have, you know, Matthew Evasusaki playing jazz trumpet. Most of this is classical music, but we wanted to go beyond just kind of Western traditions and include other cultures. And it actually became a very meaningful exploration of what is meditative music. So we have everything from Debussy's Sunken Cathedral, played by Elsie Weekly, to Johan Johansson's music from the album Angleborn. He's an Icelandic kind of visionary who has written both film and classical music. And of course, there's Chinese folk music on a pipa, and I mentioned Indian classical music. So the musicians that we brought in are people that not only play stunningly, but they also know how to play classical music in the 21st century, meaning they know how to interact with production. They know how to take 5 different takes of a solo Bach piece, like by Matthew Zamela playing, you know, solo Bach partita, and having the camera have to float around him and do various takes. That's something that not every classical musician has had to do, and Mercury Soul has been pretty careful about cultivating those musicians in the Bay Area that are good at that.
Wow. I mean, yeah, it's not something that you're right. Musicians are used to, and in people in general, just having a camera kind of go around you and you have to act like it's not there, and being able to do those takes. It's a lot of work, a lot of rehearsal too, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was fascinating too, because we really wanted to jump on this. Mercury Soul is a small organization that has the ability to change on a dime. And we decided that, unlike large orchestras that are really constrained by some of their contracts, that we could do this in June, make it happen. And our lighting crew that we brought in said, we really need to have darkness. Well, we were filming like literally the week of the solstice. So we went in at about 9 p.m. and would start rolling cameras around 9:30, and we wrap up around 5. So there were 2 nights in a row that we were in this vast empty cathedral making this music. And those musicians, some of those performances were like total witching hour, 3 a.m. performance by Elsie Weekly, for example. So that made it actually particularly kind of magical to put it together.
Wow. Talk to me about this cinematography. That's the new form of, maybe not a new form, but an addition to creating music and experiences now. And I see a lot of amazing cameras in here and a lot of people that came together to make it work. Tell me about, what kind of cameras were used and how long did it take to really get those great takes?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. The basic vision of this series, Mercury Soul Cathedral, was we want to show how classical music and DJing can be captivatingly presented online. It's not a recreation of a concert. That's, to me, a little bit of the mistake of a lot of what we're seeing, is that it's like, here's the concert you missed. We wanted to do things you can't do in a concert, get right up close to the violinist, to glide from the DJ all the way down to the brass ensemble. So I brought in a producer named Alex Da Silva and a director of photography that we had used on my film Philharmonie Fantastique, which is an animated film that various orchestras are going to premiere with a film, like live in concert. And Matthew Ebisusaki, the managing director of Mercury Soul, and I sat down and really storyboarded out how this would work. You can't just go in there and get these shots by just kind of doing it on the spot. It was really like storyboarding. And Matthew, he's an amazing trumpet player that went to the Curtis Institute, phenomenal place, but also worked in commercial film. So we both have a fair amount of film experience between us. And that's on the pre-production side. We have to really storyboard every shot. There's a journey that happens right after the opening sequence you just played at about 2 minutes into episode 1, where it goes right from Shana through the space. It looks at a book. It's like a script. And that kind of makes it all the way up to the pianist. So cool. That stuff really took planning. And then the post-production is the editing and some of the graphics that you don't even realize are graphics. Mm-hmm. All the name you see in there is actually it looks 3-dimensional, like it's almost like a block, but they were kind of added afterwards. The goal is obviously this is a musical audio format, but even if the sound was off, it should be so captivating because that is what is going to keep people engaged right now. It's not going to really work if you're just shooting an orchestra as if you were in the audience. So cinematography, I'm really, really thankful that you pointed that out. That was a particular focus of this series.
Yeah, no, I thought it was so well done. And you bring up a really great point. So when I go to a live performance, I am okay with the view of the orchestra because it's really about the sound. It's about being in that room. It's about, that connection that you get. And that's the experience that I'm going for. I want to see the rawness of it and everything like that. When I'm going to the movie theater, I'm really looking for those effects, right? I'm looking for the artistry and not only the acting, but also how that's shot, those close-ups, those shadows, those lights. So I can tell that you thought through that because, like you mentioned, even if I turned off the music, it was a beautiful piece by itself visually. So I really wow, you guys did a great job. And I hope that, people can see this and take this as an inspiration to do something similar.
Well, thanks. We were able to do this because we had two shows that were canceled, one featuring DJ Juan Atkins at Public Works, and then we were going to bring in the composers of the music to Stranger Things and pair them with really interesting organ music. And we had some resources left from the last season. We are a nonprofit, and this stuff is, it basically has to happen through donations. And we're actually looking to fund our next series, which hopefully will happen in a museum, perhaps like the De Young or maybe the Cal Academy Sciences. And so, yeah, I mean, if you go to our website, first of all, you can catch the series at mercurysoul.com. But you can also, if you're interested, help support the next one. And we have a great way to magnify it because we've had a donor offer to double every donation. So I don't mean to dwell on that, but I will say that being a very lean organization, more like a SWAT team, less like a battalion, we can do a lot very effectively and efficiently. So, even small donations are really, really appreciated. And we're looking to do the next one, and the music and the space will all interact. What if you could do this in a factory? What would the music be like? What if you could do it in front of great art? What if you could do it in a naturalistic setting? Maybe you would play some pastoral music. That's a really interesting challenge for us. And Mercury Soul is looking to continue this digital element as a kind of long form music video, even after we get through this current moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you're tuning in right now and listening to Mason, if you have some ideas, I think Mason probably could, hey, want to hear what you guys think would be a cool visual. Would it be outside? Would it be a cool museum? I think I'd love to hear from you guys as you're tuning in tonight. So Mason, it's beautiful. It's stunning. It's like so seamless. I got to know about the bloopers. Like, tell me about the moments that didn't go so right that you had to reshoot, or some funny moments.
Yeah, well, there was this moment, if you look in, is it episode, I think it's episode 2, we are going from the piano to the Indian classical duo. And I was just hell-bent on getting this long shot, a travel shot, from piano all the way into this little salon. In order to do that, it looks very smooth, and when you see the final product, maybe you can cut to it at some point. But the cameraman who's got like a steady cam is like almost like running to get down there. And this is a cathedral with steps and marble and stone and priceless works of art everywhere. And there was a moment in doing that about 5 times. First of all, that the Indian classical duo, Vineet and Arun, were like, you want to do this again? Like, we just, and it was like 3 a.m. And then the cameraman, he came so close to wiping out, coming down these steps for like 10th time. And, nothing was really in immediate danger, but it was like, there was a fair amount of tension because we were like going late in the night, and the schedule was, kind of like becoming a pressure cooker. And, everybody was like gasping as he was like coming down, and we're thinking, Ken Fook has taken a lot of time and energy to make all these works of art where they are. We certainly hate to like put a cameraman through one of them. So that was one thing. The other thing that was kind of it's not a blooper so much, but it's just interesting to think about when you see, say, I think it's the beginning of, I think it's episode 4. I'm not exactly sure, when Matt Zamella is playing this kind of like dreamy bluesy fiddle solo. He looks like he's just like, woken up from a Zen dream. That too was extremely late at night, and we were all pretty burned out. And we had to get a shot that went all the way from him down to me, that had the cool thing with St. Joseph's is that you can, with an iPad, like change all the lights around you, which is so fun if you're in lighting and parties and stuff. We had to get all that timed up, and Matt, even though he's quite a gentleman, I could tell he was just like getting super exasperated. But every time we say action and roll that camera, it's just like he became this stunning actor. And we were kind of like, as we were looking at the live takes on our kind of mobile command unit, we were all just kind of laughing. Like, we were like, how did he go from, you know, like almost like pulling his hair out to just looking like he was kissing the face of God in 30 seconds. And so it just shows you some of these players that we have are really stunning actors and actresses in addition to being fine musicians.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's different from, you know, talking to a crowd of people or performing in front of a crowd of people to a specific camera focused on you. So it does take a little bit of more, you know, maybe animation or movement or something that kind of draws you in as a viewer. So it does take acting. You're right. Absolutely. Well, I really loved the violinist. I honestly loved the flautist as well. I thought that was a really unique type of music that I haven't heard with the drum. And it's just such a beautiful venue to work in. I'm curious, you know, when it comes to the music, and you, Mason, you mentioned these beautiful classical pieces. How do you then go about adding your layer of that? Do you think through that beforehand? Is it raw right in that moment? How does that work?
Well, all of the DJ'd segments, maybe with one exception, are pieces that I composed. And just like in a Mercury Soul show where we have to figure out how the electronic music, the dance music, will flow logically and substantively into the classical pieces, I had to make sure that the DJ segments in this series matched. And what that meant was basically down tempo. You know, this is not club music that you're hearing in this series because it's very meditative. So I actually, you know, with one of the pieces that the flutist was playing with me, I drew from some music I had written for this film, The Sea of Trees, by Gus Van Sant, that starred Matthew McConaughey. So you can actually hear segments of some of that in that particular movement. I actually have a piece that I wrote for the California Symphony called Music from Underground Spaces that has recordings of earthquakes, and the music becomes like tectonic plates. So you hear that in, I think, that opening segment you made. I wanted to make sure we featured a wide variety of composers of different background and, you know, different, you know, perspectives. And I didn't want to overdo it with my contribution. I do have a piece called The Caged Bird Sings that Elsie Weekly plays that was really special to hear in that setting, because it's just imagining, you know, what it's like to be in a little cage and singing a simple song. And, you know, I guess we're kind of all doing that these days. You know, our routines have become almost like little prisons that we're in. And I know that there will be a light at the end of the tunnel, but hearing her play that was really meaningful. So I tried to basically complement what we were offering in a way that, you know, would be a substantive contribution, but I definitely didn't want to steal the show from some of the other wonderful composers we had.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love that about this series in general, but also just around all of your performances. I love the mix of music, not only the mediums, right? The beats and the DJ audition, but it's really cool, you know, classical music. We all kind of think, you know, when we hear that term, oh, back then, right? And it's not. It's actually very current. And it's also how you present it. You can make a piece from the 1700s relevant and current if it looks and feels that way. So when I was listening to this series, I didn't even realize, oh, that's from 200 years ago or 100 years ago, or it's from now, or it really blended in where I felt like it was just one cohesive piece.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, you know, the thing is, I mean, classical music is not helping itself by having a name, classical music, that actually refers to the 18th century. I really think of it as concert music. But yeah, I mean, in a sense, yeah, it's not what you hear on the radio. It's not as popular as Britney Spears. But on the other hand, I think it definitely out-hits certain kinds of indie rock or electronic music in terms of the number of people that tune in. It's essentially as specialized as many of the different kinds of music that we listen to. what everybody should know is that no matter what level of education you have, no matter what your background is, um, you have a connection to this music, and it can really rock your world and change your life. And it has a connection to you because of the ways that classical music evolved into other spaces, and also the way that music from our different cultures has impacted classical music. I mean, Claude Debussy is absolutely working in pentatonic scales because of kind of influence from Eastern music. Um, you know, the blues and the American South and the African American experience have been influencing composers since Dvorak, and certainly impacted a lot of the harmonies and rhythms that have come out in the past 100 and some years. So I think it is a continuum, and it's absolutely like great to hear you point out that it has a connection to what we're doing. I think that if we go away from this moment into like when classical music and live music generally comes back, I think you can do this kind of approach in a concert hall with an orchestra, meaning immersive production and kind of making the experience a little more fluid, maybe taking the program notes that are in your lap in a book that nobody really wants to read and making it more cinematic. I think that could be really cool, and it could give us some breathing room to present music that is challenging at first hearing. So thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, no, I think it's really, really great. And I've mentioned this to a few of the artists who have been on the show, from composers to conductors and all these different things. We're in a new era, I believe, right, where this is about a digital age that we knew that before, but now more than ever for the arts, which is really exciting. And so now you're able to globalize local arts. You're able to see what the Minnesota Symphony is doing, where I would never, you haven't been, or I'm able to see what's happening in the Sydney Opera House, which I dream about going to. And so these actual pieces are so important to the arts, even when they come back and are open to the local communities for their doors to be open. But now this connection that is happening around the world is so exciting. I mean, you're in New York City right now, and I'm in Napa. Like, it's so exciting to be able to connect with you, which maybe we wouldn't have done this, Mason, beforehand. So I think it's really these amazing opportunities that are happening, and I think it's really exciting to follow.
Yeah, to me, we can talk about the challenges that live music faces, but if you look at it in a positive light, we're all missing it. I mean, yeah, we've loved binging Netflix or whatever we've been doing the past 3, 4, 5 months. But I know that we're going to bounce back because we're a social species. We want to hear things together. I do think a legacy of this hopefully will be within the world of classical music, that production does matter. Yes, you can talk about programming. There should be more new music and more music from people of different backgrounds. I think even more pressing than that is just people have to walk into a concert hall and feel like it fits them. And I think things that feel superficial to us when you put them next to Beethoven 5, like lighting or projected information, are actually pretty key because they're so glaringly out of sync with how we experience other kinds of music. So I think that when you talk about the fact that now we have this digital world that music can exist in, I think that hopefully it'll be a hybrid model. I mean, maybe like live sports. I mean, sports, obviously there are a few more zeros in those budgets, but the live sports experience is always going to be key. It's never going to become like empty stadiums. Nobody's ever going to say, I don't want to go. But they obviously have for decades had incredible digital experience or television experience. I think that's kind of the model, and those are filmed very differently than what if you're just sitting in the stands. So that's a good reminder that there can be a business that's anchored in the live experience but has a powerful alternate version on television.
Absolutely. And there's benefits from being at the live let's say, football game, right? It's like you're around the people, you're in the moment. And then there's also benefits from being home. You get different shots, you get different angles. So there's pros to each. And I don't think one is better than the other. And I don't think one should go away and the other should stay. I think they're both very relevant, like you mentioned. And also to that point earlier, like the football world, I know people who are huge fans of football teams where they don't even live in that state. You know, they love the team. And that's what is really exciting is like I could be a huge fan now of a symphony or an opera company that I may have never been able to see live, but I can now see it digitally. So now I'm becoming more loyal to wanting to be part of your community. So I think that's what you're mentioning, this like sports world, that's going to happen, which I hope happens in the arts. This is super exciting.
Yeah, it's happening a little bit. Like the Metropolitan Opera has had, their HD broadcasts. Those are for movie theaters. I think a key issue, this sounds like such a small thing, but getting things out of your laptop and onto your big screen is really key because you just don't experience things with the same mindset when you're in your office or on your little screen. And right now, we don't really have an easy way to do that. Yeah, we all, if you're remotely tech savvy, you've got a web browser on your TV and you can type in mercurysoul.com and watch it. Man, it'd be so much easier if there was like a Netflix classical button or something like that. You didn't have to go find it. So that's been one of the things I've been thinking about is there a way that we can more easily get to that big screen?
Yeah, 100%. And honestly, I'll have to admit, I watched the series on YouTube on my screen because I was like, I don't want to watch it on my laptop. I want that bigger because I know that it's shot for a big moment. So I did watch it. But if you guys, when you are tuning in to see these 4 episodes, definitely go to YouTube for now or go to the website and your TV screen. But it does make a difference. You're right.
Yeah, mercurysoul.com is the easiest way just because they're right there and they're. But yeah, I mean, we've had over 300,000 views through some of our partners like Classic FM and the Violin Channel. So it's really taken off. And we really can't wait to do the next one. We're focusing our fundraiser at the moment. And as soon as that's finished in a couple of weeks, we're going to look at shooting in the new series. So yeah, if you have any ideas, like Carrie mentioned, put them out there. If you thought, hey, the Schubert Trout Quintet should be filmed next to a trout stream, great. I'm not sure that's going to work, but yeah, there are a lot of ideas like that that we would love to hear.
Yeah. Well, Mason, it's so good to see you. It was so fun to hear more about how this came together and everyone that was involved. I have to ask one last question. From the beginning of, hey, we should do this, to, hey, let's put it live. How long did that take for you guys?
That's a great question. I believe in mid-May, we started talking about doing this, and we approached St. Joseph's about filming there. We shot in mid-June. It was quite a lot of work to put all the storyboarding and programming and booking everybody together in a month. It took us another month to edit it, and so it was really finished by mid-July, August 1st. So, and we went live August 15th. So, like 2.5 months, something like that.
That's amazing. Wow. I'm impressed, and I cannot wait to see the next one. And I absolutely encourage you guys to check out mercurysoul.com, see these episodes, see how you can support them for the next series, and also chime in on those ideas. You never know what you're going to hear from you guys. Yeah. And I think that music is created for the community, so why not get the ideas from the community as well? So, Mason, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure to see you, and I cannot wait to see what's next.
Thanks so much. Thanks to you and Red Curtain and everybody who made this happen. So, good to chat.
Thanks, Mason. And for all you guys tuning in tonight, if you want to see some of our previous episodes with some of our guests, you can check it out at redcurtainaddict.com. We will see you next time.
Okay.